A linear function is given. Complete parts A through D. The linear function is h of x equals 1/4 x minus 3. Determine the slope and the y-intercept of the function. This linear function is written in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. So we can determine the slope by looking at the coefficient of the x, and the y-intercept by this constant on the end. So this linear function has a slope of 1/4 with a y-intercept at the ordered pair 0, -3. We want to use this slope and y-intercept to graph the linear function. To do that, we'll plot the y-intercept at 0, -3, and then use the slope to get to a second point on the line. The slope is the rise over run. So we're going to rise from that y-intercept 1 unit and run 4 units. So we're going to go vertically 1 unit and horizontally 4. And that gets me a second point on the line, and we can connect those 2 points with a straight line. Then we want to determine the average rate of change of the function. Because we're working with a linear function, the average rate of change is constant. And the average rate of change is the slope of the line. So the average rate of change for this linear function is 1/4. Now, using that average rate of change, or the slope, we can determine whether the linear function is increasing, decreasing, or constant. For any linear function that is increasing, it will have a positive slope, decreasing will have a negative slope, and constant will have a slope of 0. So this function has a slope that is positive, and so the function is increasing. We can also use visual inspection by looking at this graph of the linear equation. You can see that as we look from left to right, the y values are rising or increasing. The linear function is given. Complete parts A through D. So our linear function is h of x equals 1/4 x minus 4. In part A, we want to determine the slope and the y-intercept. So we know that this function is in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. So the slope is 1/4, and the y-intercept is -4. Then we're going to use the slope and the y-intercept to graph the linear function. So we have a slope of -4 and a y-intercept of -4, and the slope is 1/4, so I'm going to rise 1 and run 4, and connect those 2 points with a straight line. Then we want to determine the average rate of change of the function. So there's a theorem that says if you have a linear function, then the average rate of change is the slope. So the average rate of change is the slope, which is 1/4. Then it says to determine whether the linear function is increasing, decreasing, or constant. If we look at this graph, if we trace it from left to right, the y values are increasing. But we can also tell that this function is increasing based on the value of the slope. Whenever the slope is positive, we have an increasing function. Whenever the slope is negative, you have decreasing function. And if the slope is 0, you have a constant function. So this is something that works for linear functions. So for this example, we have our function h of x increasing. Thank you for checking out my videos. Have a great day.